So hello and welcome back to this new episode of the podcast Ayahuasca Assisted Therapy, and I'm super excited to be here today with Josh Margo. And he is a psychotherapist and a lot of other things that he will all tell us about today. And we met through Clubhouse in the same kind of psychedelic space that is pretty active there. So if you haven't been there and if you're interested in this topic, like, you can check that out on Clubhouse. So it's the first time that we are meeting as well. So it's gonna be just a discovery conversation, and I'm excited about that. So welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
So, Josh, I would love to start with how did you end up becoming a therapist? Like, what was that in your life, that pushed you onto this path? And what was your journey, if you want to share with us a little bit?
Yes. I had a really, I think objectively, I had a really rough childhood. I grew up in an environment where both of my parents were drug addicts, and I experienced quite a bit of abuse, quite a bit of trauma, and neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, the deal. And the one thing that my parents did very well is that they knew something was wrong, and they sent me to therapy. So by the time I was 8 years old, I had started seeing therapists. And from 8 years old to about 14 years old, I didn't really work with a good one. So I saw a lot of therapists. My parents were just kind of sending me to one person, the next person, the next person. I saw child psychologists. I saw religious therapists. I saw, school counselors, that sort of thing. And it never really connected. It never really did something for me. I think I learned some tools along the way, but for the most part, I just saw how it was done poorly. I had counselors tell me that, it was just the problem was my thinking. I had religious counselors telling me that my parents' addiction was because of the devil, and I needed to forgive them for what they were doing. A lot of bad information, which I didn't really know at the time. I just knew it wasn't working. I knew that I was missing something, and I just kind of felt like an alien on this planet as a result of it. So when I was 14, I found a therapist associated with a community center, and he was amazing. He just took the time to earn my trust. I was just this angsty little ball of emotions as a teenager, and really shut down and really reticent and closed off. And he just took his time. He took his time getting to know me. He took his time building my trust and learning what it meant to be me. And over the course of a few months, just slowly started opening up. I slowly started thawing this big ice wall that I had built up around me. And it really just sort of was the first moment in my life where I realized, one, that I could actually be in charge of some part of my life, that I actually had autonomy and I had the ability to make different decisions and change the way that I was looking at things. And two, that that change was possible. I didn't realize that, and the emotions that I felt could actually change and could be healed, and that life could look a little bit different. So from there, I started getting involved with a lot of therapy groups, teen groups, that kind of stuff. I started participating a lot more. I started opening up. I just became really addicted to vulnerability and emotional processing and opening. I'm like, oh, this is fascinating. I can actually change the way that I feel, and it gets so much better on the other side. I didn't know that. I spent so many years just feeling like this is going nowhere, and life is really depressed and awful, and just not wanting to be around at all. So by the time I was 18, I had already been involved in countless group experiences and really transformational personal growth things. So when it came up, the opportunity to go to school came up, I just knew I wanted to be a therapist. It was a clear path for me. I never changed my major. I went for psychology, and I, pursued that. I got a master's degree in mental health counseling, and, started practicing as quickly as I could, because I just kind of fell in love right away.
That's awesome. I always love listening to people's stories, and I think a lot of therapists have this wounded healer archetype, that Yeah, some things happened, and I was looking for ways to deal with it, and through that experience, as you describe, you realize that, wow, things can change and things can get better, and you have the power actually to do something about them, and that's a real high, after the depression,
Yeah.
as you say. So I can definitely relate to that. They say that in every challenge there is a blessing, and I think that, that is true in some way. I don't think, I could really relate to people on a deep way if I would have never experienced any challenges or any hardships. I would be just like, what's your problem? I don't understand, kind of way.
Well, yeah, there's that saying of like, you can only take someone as far as you've gone. So for me to be able to work with someone in this capacity, like I can't sit with someone in the dark comfortably if I don't own my own darkness. So there's that relationship of I can't be with someone in a pain that I haven't healed myself. And either it doesn't make sense or it'll scare the shit out of me. So one or the other is not a good situation. Like we have to, being the wounded healer, we have to heal.
Yes.
We have to heal this first. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you come from kind of classical Western psychology, like the same thing as me. That was what I majored in. And even when I was in the university, I worked in, I said this story many times on the podcast, but I worked in Hungary we set up the first needle exchange for intravenous drug users, mostly people who lived on the street. And I worked with these people, with serious addictions as a social worker during, while I was still in the university, and I really could see that all the tools and the knowledge that I was gaining in the university was totally ineffective with these people. I mean, like, it was just this group of people who most needed help. They were the most messed up kind of like periphery of society, and everything I was learning was not helpful for them. So that prompted me, after finishing school, to go more into other alternative and holistic modalities. So how was that for you? Because I read that you are a hypnotherapist, and you do neuropathy and relationship therapy. So what brought you, to keep still? You had a master's already, you could practice and everything, but you still keep going. Why is that?
Um, I mean, I think one answer to that question is the training never stops. I mean, I think the best therapists, healers, helpers, shamans, whatever, we always have to be training. We always have to be working on ourselves. We always have to be looking for the deeper, more nuanced areas of what it is to guide people through this process. So yeah, for me, I've always been sort of fascinated with what are the things that we don't understand, what is not in the mainstream, that are the more potent forms of healing. I'm a big fan of models that are tried and true and researched and practiced, and that anyone could just pick up a book, read it, and say, okay, I'm going to help you. Like, that's amazing, that's awesome. That if you utilize this technique, it works every time. I think that's amazing. And at the same time, I think that there's just as much as there is a science associated with this work, there's also an art form. And the way that I like to encounter people is based on who I am. So there came a time in my practice where I realized just doing one-on-one therapy didn't do enough for me to feel excited and interested and constantly wanting to show up to do the work. That one-on-one process just wasn't enough, and so then I started doing a lot of groups. And even those groups, it's like, wow, this is amazing, but I feel like there's more. So I ended up getting involved with a lot of workshops and creating these sort of like large personal growth experiences. I'm like, ooh, those offer things that this side of stuff doesn't offer, and realizing that there's value in each one. Right, they're all different tools. There's no one path to these things. They're just different methods. So I think just that path of constantly searching and seeking is, I'm sure that I will be miles away from where I am right now today in a few years, because I follow what's interesting. So in terms of, entheogens and altered states and psychedelic experiences associated with therapy. It's very interesting. It's very potent. It's something that is capable of transforming people's lives in the most amazing way possible, and also capable of absolutely devastating someone and ruining their lives. And something like that is that powerful, intrigues me. Um, so it just sparks something in my mind where, like, ooh, I want to understand this as deeply as I possibly can, because it's not easy. It's not cookie cutter. It's not just, yep, take this model right out of the book and apply it to your client and then they heal. Um, I think that's something I've just learned about myself through the process. I don't like things that are simple and easy. I like challenges. I like things that are difficult. I like working with people who are at the depths of their despair, because that's not easy. That's not simple. And I want to, feel like who I am as a person in this world, as a tool, as a resource, is useful.
Absolutely. That is so beautiful. I deeply resonate with what you were saying. And yeah, I think in one of the previous episodes, we were talking about red flags in terms of choosing a shaman, for a plant medicine ceremony. And one thing we said, if somebody says that, oh, I am already cured and healed, and I don't have to learn anything anymore, and I know everything, and I'm done, I reached perfection, then
Yeah.
not a good sign.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite quotes that I came across very early on was, always trust people who are in search of the truth. Never trust anyone who's found it.
That's lovely. I love that. I'm gonna borrow that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Anyone who
yes,
says I've figured it all out, I've got it all, it's like, yeah, I'm skeptical of that. But
yeah.
if you're just on the hunt, yes, that I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, for me, plant medicine was quite a humbling experience. And my first experience was with ayahuasca, which was like pretty, intense. And I did have, quite an inflated ego from the Western education and master's degree and, all the things and stuff like that. I'm sure you can relate. And then went into a ceremony and it was like, okay. Let's just put things in a different perspective. So that was definitely a humbling experience. And for me, it was very similar that I was always searching for other tools, and not just because I am interested, but also people are so different, and different things work for different people at different times. Like one thing is not going to suit everybody all the time. It's just not going to work. So I always had like a toolbox of other like different things that I can pull based on what the person needs, and where they are in the moment. And so I was open to everything, but I never really considered plant medicine before. And I come from Eastern Europe, so we had like zero knowledge of this. Like maybe I heard of magic mushrooms, and in the university maybe we learned that illegal drugs, and there are some plants that belong to there, but like really zero. And later, when I was in part of this online community, there was this opportunity to go to Peru to do this training with the Shipibos, and I just felt that I have to go. And I don't know what this is about exactly. It was such a strong that I went, at that time I lived in Ireland, but I went to Peru, and I was like, I have to do this, and without any knowledge. And we always say, talk to people about, the calling. So I would love to know how was your experience of, coming to the plants, and yeah, tell us about that.
Yes, I had a very similar experience as you, actually. Um, because I said my parents were drug addicts, so my early childhood up until my experience with ayahuasca was, I've never done anything. I've never tried any drugs. I never used marijuana. I drank alcohol from when I was 21 to 22. I was in college and I tried to like party. Didn't work. I didn't like it. It just didn't resonate with me at all. I hated the feeling. It was just it's disgusting. So never did anything along those lines, and I got really, really good at cognitive processing and learning this, like as you're saying, this Western psychology way of approaching things. Um, and then my wife and I had the opportunity to go to Peru, and we were going to go to Machu Picchu, and I had said to my wife in previous conversations, the only substance that I would ever really be open to is ayahuasca, like in a ceremony and with the intention of like really going to like these deeper levels that perhaps I don't have access to. So when we planned this trip, she's like, what else is in Peru, right? And so we looked up a center and we found one that we really trusted that had like a really good intake process and some integration stuff. And we went for it. And my experience was very much that. It was the hardest, the most profound experience I had ever had in my life. And that concept of ego death was one that I had read about so much, and I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea the implications of that experience, and how people talk a lot about, Mother Ayahuasca, and you encounter her. I encountered her, and while in some context I would say it was loving, it did not feel gentle. It was not warm, it was not gentle, it was not soothing, it was not nurturing. It was like grandmother ayahuasca who takes you over her knee and spanks your ass. Like, there was a moment in my experience where I was trying to get out of a loop that I was in, and I was like trying to like cognitively process this, and okay, I've got to do this thing, and I see this, I see the lesson, show me something different, and I'm trying to like work with it, and I just hear this voice, and it feels like a brick wall hits me, and it's like, you cannot talk your way out of this. You have been talking your way out of everything in your life. You are so full of shit. You need to sit and you need to experience this. And I was like, and I could just feel my entire body just give out, just like, okay, that's it. I surrender. I'm so sorry. You're right. I'm so full of shit. I'm so fucking, oh my God. It was the hardest experience I've ever had in my life, and humbling. So humbling, because up until that point, I thought I really had it figured out. I think I like in that quote that I just said, like, never trust anyone who's found the truth. I felt like I haven't found it, but man, I'm close, like, and I really had like this, a lot of ego built up around feeling like I knew the way, that I knew the method of healing. And it showed me how dogmatic I had become in the way that I was living my life. Since then, I have not done ayahuasca again. Every time I think about it, it just like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready again. I've heard people say that, like, what's your favorite drug? It's like, oh, ayahuasca. When's the last time you did it? 5 years ago. I can't, it's my favorite, yes, but not ready to do it again. Whereas since then, I've had more experiences with psilocybin and microdosing that has allowed for me to integrate a lot of the things that I've realized, and given me more of a solid ground, not like a drastic big experience, but something that allowed me to create a foundation of who it is that I want, gaining those insights and being able to work it, thread it into my life, so that I as a person feel like I get to grow.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, and I love, that you are also an example of, you don't have to drink a lot of medicine to have an effect. And actually, I do know people personally, even from my program, who only had one ceremony and total like life-changing experience. And I mean, they did the therapy, and we're gonna talk about it, that it's not the ceremony, it's the work that and what you do with it. We're gonna heading into that. But definitely, for me, like, it was very interesting, because I was on this training with the Shipibos, so that I had multiple ceremonies, and I was so naive that I knew nothing about the integration at that time. No, but I thought that the whole experience for me was so challenging. I mean, it was beautiful and powerful, but so challenging in so many ways. And that one time I wanted to quit, and I was like, send me the boat, and I want to go home with mommy and daddy. Like, I was like, no more medicine. But I was like, no, I'm just like, it's almost over, and once it's over, everything's gonna be perfect and fine. And once the training was over and they sent us off from the jungle, they said the real work begins now or something like that. And I was like, excuse, what is that? Like, I thought, everything is over now. Like, it's like I puked my guts out. Like, I'm like, my mind is like completely melted away. So what else are you talking about? So, and that was it. That was kind of my integration. And they were like, goodbye and good luck. And of course, I was not well, and not just not well, but compared to how I was before, I was worse, and I thought in my naivete that obviously it wasn't enough medicine and ceremony, because I'm still not well, and my assumption was that after the ceremony everything is gonna be perfectly perfect. And so I kept, drinking medicine until I had this like just major like dissolution of identity in a way, and it was very scary. And I really thought that I'm going to go crazy and I'm gonna know that I'm crazy, and like, I was like the edge of, really. And even though I was a therapist already, I had tools, I had trainings, like and it was like tough. So, I find a person at that point who told me, hey, stop drinking medicine and do your integration. And I'm like, what is that? And then she explained a little bit to me. And because one of my background is from rebirthing and breathwork and holotrope breathwork, and Stanislav Grof, she recommended to me, this healer, that I use the Stanislav Grof model for rebirthing. He has, the perinatal matrices. Are you familiar with that? Like, he describes the birth experience, and birth trauma and stuff like that. So, and she recommended that I use that map because she said that I'm going through a rebirthing experience, a death rebirth, which I was aware actually, because I was in a very similar experience that I had from rebirthing before, but it was just so much more intense. So I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So that gave me a little framework to navigate. And then she gave me some information, about, and then the medicine wheel and the 4 altars and how to use that, also for my process. But it was just very beginning. So I was like, okay, I need to figure this out, because obviously I need to do something with myself. And then I didn't drink for like 3 years. And wow. And then I was called again, more for, not for personal healing anymore, more for learning. So my intention was like, teach me about this part and that part, for me to understand more. And I think 3 years ago was the last time I had a sermon, 3.5 or something. And I work with other plants. Recently I was more called to work with other plants. And also she told me to work with specific plants, different plants as well. So, and ultimately what I learned, through my 7 years of working with her is just really, we are the medicine, we are the healers, and love is the medicine. And the ultimate goal is not to rely on any crutch, may that be a plant or a person or a therapist or even meditation, like nothing, just and that's that kind of path and the empowerment. And she told me multiple times that the more healed you are, the more whole you are, the less medicine you need, obviously, not more medicine. And I do feel connected to her on a very deep level, and I can tap into that energy and talk to her and receive guidance even now without sitting in a ceremony, which also I think, that it's very possible to cultivate and create relationship with these plant allies, without continuously digesting. And I've seen, a lot of people who drink a lot of specifically ayahuasca, and their energetic body is so open all the time and so ungrounded, that it can be that has dangers in it, that has, that's not good to be in that state all the time when you are not here. And that's also, she told me that, I am here to be here. And she helped me a lot to come into my body because of, the trauma and everything, like a lot of people not in their body and not grounded and connected to the earth. So she really helped me with that, and she showed me that's, for me it was easy to leave, before, like that was not a problem. It was like, stay here. And so it's interesting, but I've seen many people leave and just use it as an escape, and coming and bringing, the kind of the embodiment of their experience in this reality. So I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this idea, I mean, what I hear when I hear you talking about that is this idea of the inner healer, like an awakening, this sort of inner part. And yes, this idea that I've seen people utilize not just medicines, but also healing experiences, using therapy. Some of the personal growth workshops I do are really, really potent experiences. And yes, it's an altered state. And it's just because we are doing different emotional experiences that open things up and release so much. It's powerful. And I've seen people utilize these different types of experiences as an escape from their life. I'm trying to get out of my life. I'm trying to get away from, because it's painful, it hurts, and I don't want to be in a state of hurting anymore. I want to see if I can alleviate that. And then the other side of it, I think, is people who continually have to come back to the fire because they don't know how to take it with them. Like they don't know how to carry that warmth into their lives, so they have to keep coming back to the circle, and they have to keep coming back to be able to sort of recharge. And like, I need another hit, I need another experience of this, because it's starting to diminish, because I don't have the ability to integrate this into my life. I don't know, either I don't yet have a place where it rests inside of me, or I grab hold of it and then it fades and it gets taken away from me because of the different patterns in my life. So one of the sayings that we use in the workshops I do is that which hinders the work is the work. So if there's something that's causing you to not be able to fully set boundaries in your life, that is now your work. I can't feel my emotions completely because I'm afraid of people abandoning me. Like, okay, that's the thing that's stopping you from being able to do what you want. That is where your focus goes. And I think we miss this a lot of times. We treat obstacles as something that we need to avoid or go around, or, well, this is the only thing that works, so this is the thing that I'll have to keep doing. It's like, I think one of the most potent questions I ever come across is, what is it that I really need to be looking at right now? What is it that I really need to heal? What is it that's really showing up in my life over and over again that I'm trying to disregard or not pay attention to? And those internal questions are about accessing that inner healer and like waking it up. It's like, I'm trying to give you the message, but you're not listening. Stop going there, stop drinking medicine, and sit and be with me, be with you, like be in this space, and then let's move through it.
Absolutely. And I'm really passionate about this because I've seen so many people doing actively the integration and having amazing results, and then also a ton of people just completely missing that part and falling back eventually to the old patterns and the old behaviors, and then going back. So what I notice is that really the difference with the integration is that the change is long lasting. Like, if you do integration and if you understand that nothing will do this work for you, no plant or person or God or whatever will do it, you have to do it, then I think that we can get somewhere and we can really create long-lasting change that so many of us did and demonstrated, that is possible. And I think that is that point when people take that responsibility and say that it's my life and I have to make this happen or make it work. versus, waiting for something or someone or some miracle or something to magically, change things. And I do believe that there are many experiences that are maybe transcendental or miraculous, in a way that help us to do this. But sustained change, I think has to be, people have to be dedicated, to do this type of work. So do you specifically like work with people with psychedelic integration or specifically to ayahuasca? And if so, like do you have any like framework that you do, or you just kind of like supporting them in their journey?
Um, Not particularly in an official capacity. I have worked with a lot of people who are doing
Right.
different forms of integration. Um, in terms of a framework, it's always different. I think the framework of understanding the process of integration, I think there's a sort of general sense that I have about that. Whereas, I think by and large, it's a good thing to know that for the first month after an experience, you're probably going to be in the afterglow of that,
Yes.
of, everything's wonderful and life looks so different. And I never knew that I could be this person. And then once that fades, that's when the work starts. As soon as that honeymoon experience of the medicine dissipates, now you're in the work. Now you don't have the benefit of the deep tethered memory to that moment to fuel your motivation and to integrate things. And that part I usually refer to as the messy middle. It's the in between worlds phase, where you're no longer the person you were necessarily, but you're not yet the person you're trying to become. And for me, that is the roughest part of it. That's where I think the work really comes into play, where let's look at the things that you're having a hard time integrating, and the things that you want to accept, and the things that you can embrace. So one of the phrases with this work that I use a lot is, your new life will cost you your old one. And even when I used to say that, I didn't understand what that really meant until I really started doing the work for myself. Was every single thing that I hold on to, every single thing that I have some really deep, profound attachment to, that I have a part of my identity commingled with, those are the things that it will be asked to let go. Like, those are the old parts of my life that if I plan on having this new life that I'm moving into, I have to release the dead wood. So a lot of my process in working with people is understanding, what is it that needs to be grieved? What are the losses that we need to take account for? And not just moving to some enlightened place of acceptance, like, okay, I can receive that, I can accept that, like skip all the emotional messiness. It's like, no, let's walk through your anger. Let's walk through your resentment. Let's walk through the absolute disillusionment and fear of what will happen when you really let this thing move out of your life. Because in order to do that, in order to bring in the couch, you have to move out the futon. Right? I have to feel what it feels like to just empty out some portion of my life and then sit in that emptiness and feel what it feels like to be in that sort of void. And most people are terrified of that. And I think in that process of moving through these areas of acceptance, it's important to acknowledge that the thing that changes is not that life got easier. I think this is a misconception that we carry. Is like, I just want life to be easier. I just want things to be smoother. I'm so tired of all the problems and all the difficulty and all the things that trigger me. I want things to get easier, and they don't. And that's a very sobering concept, that it's not going to get easier. Like, the thing that changes is you. The thing that changes is your strength, your ability to contend with the world. Like, the weight doesn't get any lighter in the gym. You just build stronger muscles. You now
So
have a
true.
better ability to handle it. And I think that this goes back to your point of, it's about what I can do. Like, it's not the world happening to me. It's me shouldering the responsibility of, now I get to choose how I live this life. So it's harder in the beginning, but the rewards on the back end are, I get to take responsibility for not just the work that I have to do, but also all the rewards that I now gain. Those belong to me as well.
Yes, so beautifully said. And just want to emphasize what you said about, life is not getting easier, because that's exactly what I say to my clients, that the only thing that you can do is to learn to navigate it to the best of your ability and become a master navigator, and deal with more ease and grace and confidence with the difficult situations and the intensity, and not get overwhelmed and carried away and broken down by life anymore, so to say. So I deeply resonate with that. And I think what you're describing, that process of like self-love and acceptance and integrating this piece of ourselves, these like past pain or trauma or whatever, shadow, self, pain, body, like so many names, but really, embracing little bit by bit and bringing it back into our wholeness with that love and acceptance, and that is sometimes very difficult to do, and I believe that we are not even meant to do it alone. That's why healing in community, in group, or having help, reaching out for help, professional help, and I said this multiple times, but again I'm going to repeat that if you are listening and if you feel very alone and isolated and struggling, then reach out for help, because that's a trauma response, to be isolated and to withdraw. So as part of the trauma, so you need to, think that normally, naturally, if you have a problem, you would call out, that would be a natural, healthy response. So, and help is always available for everybody. I truly believe that it's around you. There is opportunities, there is helping hands always there, but you need to reach out and grab that hand, so to say. So your experience with the ayahuasca, can you share something specific that, okay, this was shown to me or told me or whatever, and then this is what happened in my life and now I feel different or something, because people like the juicy details.
Yeah. Man, I think the biggest transition for me that happened with my experience with ayahuasca was I was in this very, very sterile space in my life at that time. As a therapist, at the time I was practicing neurofeedback as a treatment modality. So I was doing EEGs and looking at brain scans and training people's brains. In addition to doing the talk therapy that I was doing, I was also doing this. And my focus in the world had just become so scientific and looking for the results and seeing what could be measured. And I kind of ignored everything else. If I couldn't measure it, it was not in my focus. If I couldn't see it, if I couldn't identify it and take this quality or quantitative approach to it, I didn't realize that I was ignoring those things. And one of the things that I got from my experience in ayahuasca, I mentioned that part about just getting hit with this wall and having that ego death moment. And honestly, the first 5 hours of the experience felt like reliving all the worst parts of my entire childhood all over again. So it was really grueling and really hard. After that, though, I felt like all of that pain, all of the difficulty of that part was just sort of like loading the cannon. And then when I got through it, it just like fired me into the center of the universe. And specifically, the biggest takeaway that I got was realizing that this separation that I considered between me and everything else was an illusion. That I am not separate from you. I am not separate from the people that I work with. I'm not separate from my wife, from my family, from the people that I love. I'm not separated from the people that I hate, that I despise, that I have conflict with. And that like I'm not just a piece of the universe. I'm every single bit of it. And so are you, and so is everyone else. And having that as a concept was so different than like feeling this deep, complete merging with that feeling of knowing it, not thinking it, not believing it, not having an idea, but genuinely knowing it in every fiber of who I And
Oh, I have goosebumps when you're talking about it. And I think that's what one of the reason I'm passionate about, particularly this plant, because I truly believe that it can help the world to be such a better place, because once you have that experience, you don't need a law saying don't hurt another being or even the environment or the animals or whatever. Like you simply have a visceral understanding of this interconnected nature of everything, and therefore you are looking at things and taking care of things in a very different way, because you are considering kind of part of you. If everything is part of you, you know how you want to treat yourself and everything. And I think this is a major shift, you know, and it can only come from the individual, because look at the world. Even now we have laws and regulations, and still people don't care, you know, because they, I think, so disconnected. We are so disconnected. Like, I come from the West. I grew up in a city, in an apartment. Like, I was so disconnected. I was afraid of nature. I was afraid of insects. You know, when I was a child, I was like, oh, I was like so. And yeah, like people who knew me before, they couldn't believe that I went to the Amazons and stuff like that. I was like, no. But yes, this reconnection, you know, that I think that totally shifts the priority, because it's such a deep experience. And as you said, it's not something intellectual understanding. It's something, you know, that really cannot be put in words, you know, and people only will understand through the experience. I don't think you can get this in any other way.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that exactly that feeling of I can no longer live in my life the way that I once did, because I realize now I am in relationship to everything. So I cannot hurt you without hurting me. I cannot neglect some part of nature without also neglecting myself. And yeah, it's a difficult realization, if not a beautiful one.
Yeah, I'm still working with that. Everything is
Yeah, me
part
too.
of me. I have this beautiful mantra my friend taught me, that I am part of all things and all things are part of me. I am here now. And I use that a lot, and you know, to remember this, because of course it does fade, and I do perceive you as a separate individual right now, you know, even though I still have that feeling of connectedness. And so it doesn't stay so intense, definitely, when you are in that super, you know, in the experience itself with the medicine. But I think, you know, that we can cultivate this through and then embodying in our life, connecting with nature, with the earth, with people in an authentic way. And that's how, you know, I embody this teaching that I received, the medicine, in my life. In every day I try to apply it, you know, and sometimes I fail miserably, and that's okay. I guess. So, what do you think? Because you have two other healing tools, and a vast knowledge about therapy and healing experiences. That what do you think that the plants can specifically help us in terms of healing, and especially the ayahuasca? You know, if you say there's so many ways, like how is this unique or special, or what is like something that it can do that other things maybe can't do?
It's hard to answer this simply. Um, if I had to narrow it down to one piece, memory reconsolidation. The the environment, the neurological environment that is created with these kinds of medicines is so unique in that it affords us this very rare opportunity that I can travel all the way down to the core of who I am, specifically core experiences, early recollections and memories of times where I was not treated as this beautiful slice of the universe. And in fact, I was treated like a burden. I was treated like a nuisance. I was treated like something that was inherently unlovable and unwanted and needing to work and vie and position myself strategically in order to be valuable to the people that ought to love me from scratch. Getting all the way down to those core bits of who we are in a psychedelic experience where we have access now to not just every other part of me, but the resourcefulness of the entire universe. This is just something that I think every therapist longs to create within the people they work with, is being able to get down to that piece and then tethering it to all of this adult resourcefulness that I have created in my life. Not just logically, explaining away my emotions, but being able to, like, very specifically, one of the experiences I had was being able to go back to that little 5-year-old boy inside of me and sit with him and say, you didn't do anything wrong. You were not wrong for this. You were showing up beautifully. You are someone who is trustworthy. You are someone who is honest and compassionate and loving. And the people who were around you in that moment that you're in right now, they didn't know, right? They were hurt, they were wounded, and they wounded you as a result of it. And it wasn't even their intention. And being able to connect that little boy to this life that I've now created as an adult, where I'm surrounded by people who love me. I'm surrounded by people who know me. I'm still integrating this piece a lot. So I'm like feeling this right now. Like, I'm surrounded by people who see me for who I truly am, and they know me and they love me as that person. And when I make mistakes, they see that compassionately. When I show up goofy and silly and with all the energy that I have in my person, they celebrate that. They welcome it. They cheer me on. They delight in the things that make me come to life. And
Oh, beautiful.
yeah, and all the therapy I've done in my life, I was working toward that end. And I think I did that to a large degree, but I've never been able to do it so efficiently and so elegantly as in these kinds of experiences. The ability to just do it in one session. I mean, I know that we say, like, we have to integrate this stuff, and yet there's some moments, there's some pieces that I got in one night. There's some
Absolutely. A
ahas.
spark,
Yeah.
or, but then, how will that manifest in your life, in your behavior? That's what we're talking about, the integration, of course, there's
Yeah.
many realizations and stuff like that. So, I particularly had very interesting experience, with plants, and really connect to what you said, that it is my experience that this was the only tool so far known to me that could reach certain core wounds that other tools could not reach, that I've been using for many, many years. And I think when there is trauma, especially childhood trauma, and I find it especially childhood sexual abuse is one of that, is normally so protected, the wound inside, that psychotherapy constantly forget about it. If it's like suppressed into amnesia, these things will not surface. So I had personal experience of with the medicines helping me to access, certain childhood trauma that I was not aware of. And many clients who I work with in my practice, they had similar experience. Now I'm not sure if I'm attracting these people because I can relate, and this is not the general, so I don't know if you notice this in any way, like literally memories coming back that were, super suppressed for people when they work with plants.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I also do think that, yes, there's some part of that probably where I attract people that I can help because it's what I've gone through. I have noticed a trend as a therapist with that. But yes, this idea that it naturally sort of unearths the things that, I mean, in so many ways, I think, something like sexual abuse, something like childhood trauma, it's a mistake. It's not something that is in alignment with who we ought to be, right? It's a nail driven through a tree, and the tree just trying desperately to push it out by growing thicker and stronger. And to have the ability to sort of like loosen up the fabric of who we are so that we can reach in and just pull that flaw out. It's like a bad piece of code, written into the program, and being able to remove
Absolutely.
that. And yes, the integration is then, okay, now that that is gone, how do I now restructure all of who I am? Because I've developed so many protections and so many
Absolutely.
ways of being that have shielded me from ever triggering this again. That is a part of that work as well, of course. But I mean, I think the level of reverence that we have to approach these experiences with is because of that. That I better, anyone who goes into an experience like this and working with these medicines, it's just like, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be fun. I have no concerns whatsoever. It's like, you probably aren't paying attention because you're about to go into the gauntlet of experiences right now. And I think we all ought to have some level of respect for that process, that something could emerge that could potentially derail my life right now. And I need to be prepared for that. I need to have my tribe waiting at home for when I get back, that I have people I can talk to, then they're prepared for what it is that I have to share, that they can hold space with me and give me the compassion and the support and the insight and the love that I will need, because the potential of unearthing something really dark and mucky and probably not enjoyable to experience, at least from scratch, is very, very high.
That's absolutely my experience with, particular with the ayahuasca. I almost feel like her like this surgical tool, exactly as you described, that is ability to reach super and to bring these core wounds to the surface, which would take with traditional tools and therapies ages to break through all the resistance and the denial and everything to access. And of course, if you cannot access it and you're not aware, you cannot heal, you cannot move on, you're trapped to you repeating, you are condemned to bring it into your future. So it is a type of prison in this way. And I think that the beautiful thing for me was to do this part of the work, the medicine, is to bring it to the surface, so we don't need all that work to dig and to try to excavate and figure out. But she unlodges it, as you said, like she pushes it to the surface. And many times, people have these shocking experiences because of this reason, because I think that's her function. I mean, she's called the wine of the dead, and this is a type of death and rebirth that we go through. Like, I mean, for me, my whole identity and everything shifted in such a deep way after having this peace, and how I looked at myself and my behavior. Like, it was just like, it is a totally, you become a new being. And even though I think these experiences can be super intense and challenging, and you definitely need support system, but it's also an opportunity to finally to be free, to be free from this past pain, and to move on, really, and be consciously creating, and not unconsciously, perpetuating, what happened. So I think, that it's the light and the shadow, of course, like the intensity and the experience, and then the possibility of freedom and healing and everything that is contained there. It's like, I think for me, very symbolic, in this whole journey. I remember reading on your website that it's not for the faint-hearted, your programs or something, and I have the exact same sentence on mine. And I do think that, particular people call to this particular path, and there are many paths that are just as good, and effective, But yeah, I love the for this reason, I love that we can really reach really deep and create deep transformation with these tools and allies. So I'm so happy, and I hope that we can come together another time and continue, because you are such a wealth of knowledge and experience. But just before closing, tell us a little bit about what kind of projects you're running at the moment, and what kind of clientele you're working with. So where can people find you, and what are you passionate about right now?
Yes. What I'm very, very passionate about right now, and now that COVID is lightening up, we're not out of it yet, but it's lightening up. We're getting back to in-person workshops. So the organization that I work with is called Personal Power and Prosperity. It's a personal growth workshop. It is not based in any sort of use of medicines. It's based in emotional agility, which is probably one of my favorite precursors to these kinds of experiences. The more that we have an internal awareness of how to navigate our inner world, the more equipped we are when we add something very, powerful like a plant medicine. Uh, those workshops are coming back. We currently have workshops in Orlando, Florida, where I am. We also have them in Berlin. We have a community based there as well. So I'll actually be traveling there in June for our Berlin course as well. And then additionally, we are doing a teen camp here in Central Florida for teens age 13 to 17, where we have a summer camp for an entire week. And we teach teens how to navigate their limiting beliefs and how to experience their emotions and how to address conflict, and giving them sort of tools to be adults, preparing them for their life ahead of them. And then
I
the last
love
thing I'm
that.
doing, yes, yeah. That's the camp is probably one of my favorite experiences I get to do.
Total, and it's so important that kids learn these things. Like this should be, communication, emotional expression, mental health. This should be taught, and oftentimes I'm teaching people in my practice when they are 50 or something to do these things. And I
Yeah.
also learned as an adult, by looking for the knowledge for myself. So this is so cool. I appreciate this so much that you are involved in this and planting the seeds. It's easier to create good habits and good ways than to completely change everything when you are like 40 years old.
Yeah, a lot easier when you start small. Yeah, and the last thing that I'm doing is I am working on developing a facilitator training course, because a lot of what I do is not just about facilitation, but also facilitation in large groups, understanding how to hold space for emotional experiences with large groups of people. And the way that we define large is whatever number of people you can no longer attend to each person individually. So depending on the facilitator skill, that could be 4 people in a psychedelic experience, right? Because there's a lot of potent experiences going on there. Whereas for someone who's leading a meditation course, that could be 30 people because they have the skills to do it. But there's a certain point at which, kind of like what we're talking about, the relationships and the dynamics that happen between people, where we ought to treat the group as an organism of itself. And there's a lot of really amazing things that happen with that. And all my training of therapy and personal growth and so forth, I've never really come across someone who teaches that dynamic specifically. So I've had a lot of people ask me just to do a training around this, so that other facilitators can start doing this in their communities as well. So that's what I'm really, really inspired to do before the end of this year.
Awesome. That's that going to the teaching. I think it's the next level of service also, teaching the skills to people so they can also go and teach it to others. So that's wonderful. And we're gonna include your website and all your social media in the description of the video so people can connect with you and participate in all of the good things that you are offering. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I always ask, before we finish, what if somebody is thinking about going to the plant medicine path, and specifically with the ayahuasca, like what would you say to them?
I would say trust that inner voice inside of you that's pointing you where to go. I think we spend too much time listening to what other people have to say to us, and
Yeah.
unless we don't spend enough time listening to what we are saying to us, there's a voice inside of all of us that is always pointing us to our true north, and that will always point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Trust your inner guidance and your
Yeah.
intuitive guidance. And if you don't know where is that voice, then, listen, quiet your mind, quiet your life a little bit and listen inside, and you for sure gonna hear it. So thank you so much. It's such a joy and pleasure to meet you and to share with you today, Josh. And thank you for our audience for listening. And please subscribe and share this video, because we rely on you as we don't have any marketing team. So if you like this video, share with your tribe, with your friends, and see you soon in the next episode. Thank you.